Okay, so we just started recording and we were asking if anyone did the homework of creating, what was it, Luz, a
Eh,
500 word story?
Yeah, 500-word story. That's the goal. And 500 words because is what publishers consider the sweet spot for children's book. Now, if you didn't do 500 words, I will celebrate you even if you do a sentence. Because as many of you know, it is a struggle to accomplish anything in life. It is. And even to think as a child and try to get this magic going on paper, I acknowledge it's hard. It's hard for me, believe it or not. So thank you, Angie, for starting up about the homework. So I wanted to give the floor to Gilda so she could share if it was hard, because it has to be hard because you're thinking something outside the box. This is not like, oh, I'm just gonna just force myself to do something. It has to be very honest.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you. Like I was saying, for me, it was very hard to wrap my head around not the 500 words, but just to get started was a lot for me, particularly. And I have a lot of things in my head, but I just don't know how to organize them. And then I get like frozen, and then I'm like shifting from one idea to the next idea to the next idea.
Perfect.
And the thing is that, I've been, listening to Angie and reading certain books, and she actually sent me one day because I won something. She still owe me one, Angie. Hello.
Which book I
I
owe
just
you?
remembered. But and it's so
Heller.
funny. I wound up
Tú me
picking
debes,
something.
Angie, by the way. Not just joking. Ya que
¿Cómo fue?
estamos. I love that. She goes, you owe me a book, Angie.
Yeah, and I started even picking out I love children's books, and I have all my children's books.
Good.
That's the
Okay.
whack-a-mole. And I have this one.
That's older book. I've seen that one.
I love that book, and I used to read it to them. And so I started to, just say, let me read to figure out how it sounds. And I was paying attention to the one word because you gave us the one syllable, was it? Or two, no more than two syllables. So then I started focusing on that. So it took me a bit to kind of figure things out. Anyway, to make the long story short, I did start writing. It wasn't a lot. I want to share.
Go ahead and share.
Ellie and her mother, Rosie loves desserts, for example. I said, just a little bit, I'm just going to show you because I was all over the place. Just got up, Ellie just got up from a nap when she smelled the sweetness of, abue, which is abuela, short. What are you making? That smells so good. And she asked, she says, I am making the most delicious dessert that my mother used to make. And so she said, what are you making? So I actually stopped there, right? I stopped there, and then I wound up doing that bullet because I don't know how to organize myself in writing a lot of times. Songwriting is different because it flows. Writing children's book is not my thing.
It's okay. I'm gonna stop you right there because I want to celebrate a couple things you did before you jump on. I am celebrating you because you went from one idea to another, whether it was connecting a story or not, you were allowing your brain to think differently. The bullet points are meant to be hard because, and I'm going to tell you why, because you're starting to organize in order of like, I want to open up my children's book to look like this. Remember when I say, write this and then rearrange it and then put illustrations on it and put it in bullet points? That's a story. This is why I give you I'm gonna share my screen because I think it'll make more sense, right? Let me just allow me to share the screen. I'm gonna do that right now so you guys can see what I'm talking about because I'm very visual and I think it's important for you guys to think visually as well. I have given you as part of share screen. Thank you, Angie. Did you guys get this?
Yes.
You could use this as bullets. It doesn't have to have words. You could just write. Do you remember the first class? We show a board book that doesn't have words and it
Mhm.
just has pictures
Yep.
or a letter and stuff, that counts as a picture book. If you're drawing something so you can see the progression, that is fine. Remember, we started with the tree. I'm going to refer back. Do you remember the tree?
Uh-huh.
We started with a little naked tree, then the leaves, and like
Little leaves, yeah. And then it blossomed. Yeah. Mhm.
and it blossomed. That's the same with a story. Start writing a bullet. You name 2 kids. They're smelling something delicious. It's building. You have to start like that. It has to go in a progression.
Mhm.
Anyone else that wrote something, even if it's a thought or a little bit more, who would like to share? Go ahead, Mariela, and then Carissa.
Hi, everyone. So I didn't write like words for the book. What I did instead is that storyboard like template that you just popped up. What I did was kind of narrated like on each thing, like what I want to happen on the page. Because like I feel like if I literally sat there and tried to think of the dialogue and it wasn't coming to me. But what I did have was kind of like this idea of like almost like a timeline.
That's
So
exactly what it's meant to be.
so I ended up, I have these shirts that I sell with like the muñeca sin cara.
See,
And that's kind of the story that I want to write for my daughter. So these are my little muñequitas for inspiration. And so the name of the book is like Baby Z Su Muñeca sin cara. And so I basically started writing out like how I wanted to start. And then, you know, I ended up getting this idea of her asking her grandmother in the book. Because the image for me that was striking when I was a kid, right? And it's going back to what you said, like thinking of it from like that toddler, like, or that kid perspective. And I remember seeing like a vitrina full of like the
muñeca
ceramic.
sin cara. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid. And so I was like, well, you know what? I'm gonna start with that moment. And so in the storyboard, it doesn't look pretty. If not, I would share. But what I ended up doing was kind of writing what I wanted the story to look like. And that moment of her like looking at the dolls in the glass, you know, display case. So I feel like that was the breakthrough for me. Because I think it's always interesting. You have all this stuff in your head, pero cuando está puesto like in black and white, I feel like it hits different.
No, claro, claro. Thank you, Mariela, for sharing.
Yeah, Mariela.
Carissa?
All right, I did start another story, but I really like the exercise that you did about los tres cerditos. So
Yeah.
I finished that story. You want me to
Ooh,
share it?
can you share a little bit?
Yes, I did it in Spanish. So I don't know, does everybody speak Spanish? All
Is
right.
it okay? Okay.
Okay. So I said, los tres cerditos al campo fueron, mucha comida allí trajeron. Oh, I like rhyming because my favorite children's book, I have 2 kids, they rhyme. Those are the ones that my kids
Gravitate towards.
It's like llama, red pajamas and stuff like that. Really who I like. So I'll go back. Los tres cerditos al campo fueron y mucha comida allí trajeron. Cuando se prepararon a comer, al lobo feroz vieron emerger. Su primera intención fue correr. Entraron en pánico, no sabían qué hacer. Correr, esconder, gritó el menor, pero el hermano mayor brindó otra opción. Hermanitos, hermanitos, nos tenemos que calmar. Lobo feroz no nos quiere cazar. Miren su cara, parece que no está bien. Tiene hambre y no tiene que comer. Así que el hermano mayor de él, y tenía razón, no los quería a comer. Al lobo feroz no les gustan los animales, prefiere comer crujientes vegetales. Y como buenos samaritanos, invitaron a comer, todos felices disfrutaron del banquete.
Wow, that's a complete story, and it rhymes and it flowed. Yeah, we should try illustrating that and how you want each image to look like. That would be, if you want to really push yourself forward to think creatively, that'll be like the next step. That's amazing. Anyone else wants to share? And it's fine. It doesn't have to be like a complete thought. Tony, I have to admit, I've been thinking about your story a lot, about the wolf detective. And I don't know if you can hear me, Tony, but I've been wanting to know how you would end that story. Can you hear me, Tony?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm actually driving, so
No, that's okay.
I won't be able to talk just because I'm driving.
No, please be safe. But I had that story in my mind. I don't know if our fellow writers remember when he was reading, like to me that left kind of like a lasting memory as well, like a wolf that was a detective. Like, wow, that's a nice twist, and that's a nice way to think creatively. Anyone else wants to share? We had so many great stories you guys shared last week, guys. Okay, I'm gonna start the class, but I want to give you a moment to share whatever anyone wrote. Okay, going once, going twice. Oh, go ahead, Tatiana.
Yeah, so I loved the exercise. I sat down and I have like one chapter of a long children's book written. And then I had a note where I thought, oh, when I finish this one, I'll write a short picture book. So for the homework, I went back to the notes on that story. And when I looked at my notes, I realized and took in everything you talked about in class. I said, this is way too complicated. I need to simplify it. And what I did to help me pair the text and the images, I went into Pages and I found like a book template that had like storyboard layouts. So I forced myself, I would write a little bit and then I would go find clip art to match it. So it's like illustrated, but really just using clip art because I couldn't find actual illustrations. But this way, when I go back and look at it, it really does match what the words say. And I was pretty happy because I finished it and just one shot without spending too much time thinking. I really got into a flow. I wrote like 460 words. So I'm really proud of the story. I'm going to go back and try editing it and see what happens with it because I'm really happy with it. So wow. Last week's workshop, I kept going back to my notes. And that really helped put a fire. Because like I said, I had this idea of how I wanted it to go, but my idea was like way up here. So once I simplified it, I was like, okay, this makes sense now as a picture book.
You did this. You did the text with the art. That's all I wanted.
Yes, the text with and it made so much sense because sometimes I would have a sentence like, okay, she's walking to the store with abuelo. And then I would go look for pictures. And then I'm like, but wait, are they walking in a neighborhood? Are they walking in the city? So then I'd have to go back to my text and be more specific or like, you know what, this is too much text. You wouldn't be able to illustrate this. So then let me make my text simpler. So that I think was the best tip is really and I think doing it that way where I'm not going to move forward to the next page until I have an illustration really helped me put the text with the pictures.
Okay, guys, thank you, Tatiana. I'm going to share a secret. I'm going to share a big secret I haven't shared with a lot of people. My husband knows. I wrote for Encanto, the Disney stepping into reading books. What I didn't share is how I got started working on that project without having a script, without knowing my illustrators, without knowing what the fuck they wanted me to write. Guess what they gave me? 3 images. So if Disney is doing it, why are we not doing it? That's the secret. The secret is they give you 2 or 3 images and say, make a story out of that. You don't know what the fuck is going on in the image. And guess what they do? They take it and they're like, I hate it. Write something else. And they don't say, I hate it. They're like, oh, I see where you're going. Can you try again?
Wow. That blows my mind because I actually bought my little niece those books for Christmas. And then I shared that, you know, I felt like it was kismet that led me to this writing class. And when I looked you up, I was like, she wrote those books because when I went to the Amazon page, it was like, you purchased this.
I wrote one. And I'm going to tell you why I wrote one. One of the writers that was in this project, she's actually, she's a really famous reporter. She got an award recently from Fox News, and she's a Hispanic reporter. She started a publishing company. The publishing company she started produces all her books. She's not picking up new writers. I believe she wants to. I think she just is really in love with her ideas, and that makes sense. You know, she started her own publishing company. It would have been nice if she would have highlight a lot of more diverse voices because we need those spaces, right? She invited me to the project because she loved the Maria project. She believed it so much. When I was in the interview phase with Disney, I was surprised. They liked it too. But I'm unagented. I'm basically an indie book publisher. I know how to talk in these spaces because I've learned a thing or two. But I told them I've never written in a project when it was about a film. She's like, I think you'll be wonderful. And it was I was like crying at the end, not in front of her. I kind of like broke into a Disney song. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I want to sing a Disney song now that you gave me the job. And she started laughing. So she gave me the job. And then 2 weeks later, she's like, did you sign all the paper? Here, good. We don't have an image. We have this. And it was basically, like you said, a clip art. The reason I'm sharing all this, and this is something I don't share, you're my first class. And I thank Angie for believing in me because I was really doubtful of being a teacher or leading people with the way I think. Because let's say you guys written 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 books. If you start working with like companies, they're gonna want you to be very creative. They don't wanna guide you, because if they do that, they're gonna do it themselves. You know what I mean? So they're gonna give you a clip art and say, let me see what you could write. You better come up with something.
Mm-hmm.
If someone tells you I'm giving you $5,000 for 100 words, I bet you all of you are writing books. 100-word story. I bet you're gonna be like, here you go. Okay, let's up the stakes. How about $10,000? And you can't write more than 150 words. This is real, you guys. That is a real thing. But the thing that makes it more unique is when you share it in your voice. No one can, like, if you leave today, I want you to leave and I'll get into the class and I'm gonna try to breeze through it. I know I never do that. You need to hone in your voice. What is my message? What is it that I want to share? Is it, I want to show about, a lot of my messages is kind of highlighting Black and white kids, but mixed kids, especially because as Caribbean individuals, Afro-Caribbeans, a lot of our race was erased because of the colonizers' war. And then we have kids that are totally affected by the fact that they don't know where they belong. So our books, I believe books should be affirming. I believe books can help combat racism. I believe that strongly. I believe that we could help kids see themselves in more ways than one. So that's why I'm writing. So every time I write, consciously, I say that so much that it kind of like oozes out of me. So I use the words Black and white with such ease. So you guys got to get into what is your authentic message, because then before you know it, you'll be writing and editing it out. And kids will get that. Kids are gonna get that. And then you'll know what to write. I'm gonna stop, get off my soapbox, share the screen. It is 3:22. Let's see what we could do. Okay, because I'm an annoying person, I believe in games, because what better way to learn if it's with games? So, hello, my name is Luz. A fruit that starts with the name L would be, what's a fruit that starts with the letter L?
Lemon.
Limoncillo. Limon. What's another one? How about a place, a country, or state that starts with L?
Lebanon.
Lebanon. Ooh, Lima, Peru. How about another one?
Louisiana.
Louisiana, great. A thing that starts with L.
Light.
Light, yes, Luz. An animal that starts with the letter L.
Leopard.
Leopard. A sport that starts with the letter L.
Lacrosse.
Lacrosse, that's a good one. Okay, Introduction. Game to list name, fruit, place, an animal, thing, and sport, starting with the first letter of your first name. You guys have 2 minutes to do that. And then I want to hear it. And this is a funny name, a fun game that I used to do when I was little. And there's a reason for that. And it goes a lot with what I was just talking about. And the time starts, if you guys want to start now, even better, because you know I'm slow at this. Now. Ooh, I hate when I do this. Got 1 minute. Okay, let's do this. Oof. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. So start with the name, a fruit, a place. It could be a country or state, animal, thing, and sport. I gave you 2 minutes. Okay, you're down to 1 minute. Pretty sure you guys are wondering why are we playing this game. It's okay, I'll tell you. It's a lot to do with my story about Disney, but I'll tell you at the end. You got 20 seconds. Okay, we're going down to 10 seconds. We're gonna do it again, but with less time. Who got, by raise of hand, who got all 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Almost all of you. Great. You got 30 seconds. I need you to do it with the first letter of your last name. And let's say whoever gets it, let's say gets the contract for Disney. And we're starting now. Before you're almost there, Kelvin. You got 4. That's close enough. Okay. 15 seconds. We're halfway mark. With the first first initial of your last name. So my first initial is Mack. It should be Mack. Fruit is like a melon. Place is Montgomery. And we're done. I got through 3. How many did you guys get?
I got 6.
You got 6. Oh my goodness, all of you got contracts. How did that feel?
It was good.
It was weird, right?
Yeah, but it was good though, because for me, it makes your brain, I'm an older person, so it makes me exercise my brain, which is really good for me. Y'all young people, y'all are good.
I don't know, because I still remember the commercial for Memory Power, and I'm sure I'll forget to take it because my memory's all out. Okay, the exercise was to challenge you to think a little quicker on your feet. It is true, most writers, when they have an opportunity, such like the one I did for Disney, it is timed. And there's no excuse about being late. Because if you're late, chances are you're not going to be welcome back.
Wow.
It's really hard to give second opportunities if people are not meeting their end of the bargain. But it doesn't mean that we're not artistic, creative people that can make, a big, beautiful thing out of nothing. So we're all highly capable and intelligent. This is the reason for this madness, okay? Now I'm going to share my screen again. Thank you for playing that game with me. because now we're going to move on to what readers learn about early reader books. So in the first and second class, we learn about keeping things brief and why, because of kids, I want to say attention span as well. They're learning to read. Reading is a tiresome activity for kids. Some of them are getting used to it. They're learning their sight words. From their sight words, they're making small sentences. But for early readers, these are kids that have developed more stamina when it comes to reading. So they're still reading the short words, short sentences, and short paragraphs because they read this and they have to make sense of it. So keep it simple, repetitive, and easy to decode and grab the reader. It has to be, because if you keep it very long and winded, how many of you like hearing long-winded stories? How many of you get lost in your thoughts when someone is talking and it's very long-winded? Okay, unfortunately, that's the same for kids. In a book, they'll be like, I don't care what's going on anymore. And it happens. I'm being honest. I think someone told me once my book was boring, and it was good to get that feedback because that means I had to go back to the drawing board when I'm writing something. And I'll tell you which book that was. The Elephant Family Parade. A child found it boring. The parent found it stimulating. So you see how different that is? Who's my reader? The child. So I should be catering to the child, and the parent will follow suit. Captivating characters, themes, and plot. That if a character is relatable, and not only relatable, people fall in love with the character, they're gonna more likely be invested to the story. The plot is the plot, the character is the character, the setting is the setting. But we have to make people believe it, see it, and want to experience that person. So that's what we're doing as writers, okay? So easy to read fonts. This is important. The fonts, when you have a graphic designer who's taking your text and put it in on paper, it's important for the font to be readable. How many of you see Instagram fonts that are small? I'm guilty of it. And then you're like, what? But sometimes you're doing it for a reason. Maybe you're, I don't know, you want to send a cryptic message. I don't know. Was Drake really sending a cryptic message to Khloe Kardashian by putting Tristan Thompson? I don't know. But, you know, like, think like that. Like, I know I'm using like some celebrity gossip, but that's how people feel when they're seeing fonts that are hard to read. And I'm guilty of it. Everything that I'm sharing with you is mistakes that I've made and learned from and still learning. Okay, clear font style throughout the entire book. I recommend things like Times New Roman, Arial, like the classics. There are fonts that are similar to those in early reader books. Early reader books have more text. This is why. Make sure that the text stands out on the paper. Example, dark text stand out more on white page than colored pages. Pages that have like a slew of color is hard for the reader to read. This is important because I'll give you an example. If you go to a restaurant and the walls are covered in red paint, why is that? Does anyone know that? That's a marketing trick.
Yeah, that's to entice them to eat more or something, right?
Exactly. When it comes to a book, you should entice the reader to read more. It cannot be read. They're gonna get lost looking for the text, especially a child. Illustration that goes with the text. Children will rely on illustrations for context clues to learn new words and build their vocabulary. Is that true? Did we see that with the 3 Little Pigs example last week? Can we tell the story a little bit without text? Remember, the illustrations are there for the kids who cannot read to make and infer the story. Is the same for kids that are reading. Simple illustrations are the best, clues for early readers to understand the story and text. I'm gonna give you a big secret. If you want your books to be in schools, they like friendly looking characters. They like things that are bright. not dark. Even Scholastics. I had a meeting with Scholastic. They love my images. I'm going to give you an example. One of the images they didn't like, it was the one with Maria with a broom. Although they read the story and it was about a cleaning up book, they understand it, but they still found that troublesome. So you have to make sure that you understand the market well enough to know why illustrations have to go with the text and why and who you're selling to. Illustrations, like say if there are illustrations that show, I don't know, something that looks gory, like the examples that we were showing last week, or hard to understand, it's not going to be pleasing for kids. Let me look at the chat. I'm sorry, I don't want to miss it. What was problematic about the broom? Good question. So this is actually a true conversation I had with Scholastic. Does anyone know Maria the Super Helper, that book I wrote? Has anyone seen it? Okay, if you haven't, I'm happy to just pop it up so you can see it. Let me go to Amazon. Oh, thank you, Kelvin. I'm glad you like it, but Scholastic, who was like the #1 in the kid space, Mira, it came up first with my Encanto book. Oh, come on, internet. So this is the image. This is my cover. It's a cleaning book. Like if you think about it, it should be like a cleaning up book, right?
Is it because it's a brown girl with a broom, or?
Exactly.
Is it like slavery or something for them, or?
They thought that, but I told them I could see why that is hard if you're working really hard for women of color not to be in these roles. But
Yeah.
if you read the book, it's talking about how families work together.
Yeah.
And no matter which community. So they loved the book and they wanted to change that. And I was open to it. I was not against it. But then I'm like, then how are you going to show a little brown girl cleaning with her family? Are you going to be mad that everyone has a broom? So I challenged them back. Wow. So my goal is be prepared to fight on your illustrations, but be also understanding of the space that you're in. Yeah. Because it needs to make sense. Do not fight people about your illustrations if everyone's telling you they're dark, they're promoting this. Because then you have to kind of take the criticism a little bit, like internalize it. It's coming from a place. I understand what they're going from. And it's okay. The opportunity might not match your goal. Does that make sense, kind of?
So was the deal for Scholastic for them to reprint your book?
So it's safe for me to talk about this because it's no longer happening. I was in talks with Scholastic for 2 years. They wanted to buy the series and make a series IP. So I was going to collaborate on an entire Pequeña Maria, Little Maria series. So if they were going to produce that, one of the things is like, or reproduce it, is that they have to change it. So they could be like, a Scholastic's book by Luz Maria Mack. That's usually how it goes. They buy your IP. Obviously, think about Harry Potter. The lady who wrote Harry Potter, she first wrote Harry Potter, and then she went through a smaller imprint, or was it publishing company? And then it got bought out by Scholastic. Then they're working together on this series books. And how many Harry Potters books she did? She did a bunch of them. You know what? It's so bad, but because I was never a fan of the Harry Potter books, so I'm so sorry if I offended people. I didn't like white British kids. I'm sorry, I said it. I'm done. Let's get that out there. I just didn't relate to none of the stuff. So none of my kids, you will never see them going, oh. I was like,
as my Harry Potter books stare at me from my bookshelf.
I'm so sorry. I'll be like,
okay. Totally get it.
I'm like, there's no mango in that. Like, what's going on? Go ahead, Angelina.
So with that consideration from Scholastic with Maria and the broom, did you get that feedback from other places? Because
no, I got it from one other person, and they apologized after they read the book, and they were a writer themselves. Okay. So So it was interesting because I think for scholastics, there's 3 things. And if you get to to that part of the game, you know you're doing something right. Because even though that department turned me down from Scholastic, I'm getting picked up by another department in Scholastic. So the departments in Scholastics, and I will share this nugget with you, they do not work uniformly, meaning you could get picked up by any department in Scholastics, you know? Because another department in the Scholastic said, I love it. I actually want you to write for us. Isn't that crazy? So what I'm trying to tell you is make sure when you're writing something, it makes sense, write it, think of the audience, and then defend it, but takes with some heed to the criticism, because in a way I do understand what they were getting at. I don't believe in seeing people of color in these subservient roles, but the book, when you read it, that's not what it was about. It was like for kids to learn to clean together with their families. My kids need to clean their room. That's just who I was. I wanted to teach my kids to have like that self-sufficient nature by them. But that's just me as a mother, and some parents believe in that. So let me move on, but I gave you that feedback so you guys could think about it. Repetitive phrases and sounds, okay? I think this is important. Sorry, wrong thing. Ensure that we are introducing new words, repeat phrases, sentence structure, and rhyming words to reinforce learning. How many books in children that you see when you get to early reader that they're repeating the phrases and sentence structure and the words? A lot. So the Roald Dahl, he's like a famous American writer. He wrote a lot of books, The Witches, BFG. What was another one that he wrote? Matilda. A lot of famous books. A lot of the words that he would make up in his book, he will carry them on and again, and you will see them in different books. So that's an example. So kids will learn from that. I think one of the ways I could make it into Spanish, did anyone grew up seeing El Chavo del Ocho? He goes, eso, 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 eso. And almost all his comedic stance, you see him going, eso, 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 eso. So like, that's like, think about that as a book, you know, like he's that kind of like what he's like his comedic rant, he carried it on and on and on. Like the nuance, try to carry that nuance in the writing because the kids will pick up on that. I'm sorry, I'm trying to make it relatable from like the famous children's books and then relatable to our culture. Because in our culture, we don't see a lot of books that are like so like famous like that, you know, like the series books. We don't have a series books. Okay, early reader age group. The general early reader books age groups are from 4 to 6. I want to tell you right now, this class is going to have less writing exercises because it's more, you're going to get into the habit of what we learned in the first class from board book to picture book, and then early reader is you're building on it and you have to simplify it and you're using more text. So the ideal group is from 4 to 6 because they're reading longer sentences, but it's really meant to be from 8 to 12. Does that make sense? In America, and I have to say America, we want our kids reading at the age of 4 to 6. They should be already reading at what level for my teachers that are in the group? What level should they be when they're 4 to 6? I got it.
Already like a level J or K. Exactly.
But an early reader book, let's be real for our moms that are here, is like an L or an M. I forgot but it's longer. So it's a kid that is, so what happens when our kids cannot read that much? We refer to audio. We refer to the video books so they could get used to the words and hearing it. One of the reasons audiobooks are so good for kids is because the person that's reading the book to them, they have to sound pleasing, they have to sound engaging, they have to act out the book, right? And it's easier for the kids to start emulating those voices, to start memorizing words. I'm telling you all this for these reasons. When you're writing, I want you to start reading your stuff out loud. Blah, 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 blah. Practice it. Just read it in 3 different tones. This is an acting mechanism to help you see if it, 1, flows, 2, makes sense, and 3, what needs to get out. If it's too wordy that you have to stop before the sentence is done, you have to go back. Does that make sense? 1, you got a run-on sentence. 2, it is too wordy. Imagine a 4 or a 6-year-old reading that without assistance. Okay? All right, this class is a little, okay, early reader word count and page count. Early reader word count can be as few as 300 words and as many as 1,200 words. Really, what I've been hearing is they would take, when I say they, I meant agents and publishers would take an early reader book to be anything as high as 3,000 words. So that's a small chapter book. Okay? So those are like the Beam books. Those are like the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books. Those are like, you know, like the text is very big and friendly, but it's a lot more, like it's a lot more plot, a lot more characters, because it has more, it's talking about more than one character. We're following 3 stories, like 3 people and their feelings, right? And it has more plot to it, so we have to follow along. Early reader page count can vary as 32 and up to 64 pages, depending on the reader level and the complexity of the text. This is why I'm explaining which books for you to look at, so you could start looking at these books and seeing like, okay, this is what early readers are reading. These are favorites. And I should know because I have an early reader. My son is 8 and I have an 11-year-old. So the difference in books are very, they're very like wide, because it's based on age and understanding. Okay, for those who have kids, you should see what your kids are reading and what the schools are recommending. For those who do not have kids, you should go to your local libraries or see age group, like even on a Google search, what are kids reading from this age? That will help you kind of guide you on that. Okay, page layout. This is the 32-page layout, right? We went through that. Remember, we did that for picture book. If I'm telling you, let me stop the share. If I'm telling you for an early reader book, it could be page count from 32 to 64 pages. That looks way different. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? I'm going to stop because I feel like I want to make sure everyone is understanding what I'm talking about. Any questions about what I just said?
Can you explain what you mean? It looks different from the picture book layout, you mean?
Yes. It should be at least 2 of the, okay, let me do the share. This is a traditional picture book layout, right? For an early reader, it'll look like 3 of these. And it'll be wider. The pages will be wider because we have a lot more text. Okay. How many images, and this is me making you think outside the box, do you think an early reader book will have? There's no right and wrong answer, so you could go on mute.
I feel like it would be minimal because you're trying to teach them new words and they enhance their vocabulary.
Okay. Any other questions? I think you did this, Calvin. You think 3? Oh, okay. You know what? Fuck it. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, I'm gonna teach you this and you're gonna be like, damn, I need Advil. This is Diary of a Wimpy Kid book. Look how thick it is. Is this a 32-page layout? No. We're talking about 200 pages. This is called spot art. That's not, every page has art. Remember, you are the writer. And if you're self-publishing, you should want art. It is expensive. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna teach you all the different types of early reader books. What is the age group for a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book? I want to hear you guessing. Get off mute.
11.
11, good.
9 to 12.
Middle school, good. Good.
Yeah, I'd say like 8 to 12.
I'm gonna blow your mind. They start at 5. 5 all the way to middle school. So what am I trying to teach you? Why am I like, she just taught me picture book and to keep it simple. Wait, I'm not done. Let me be very more moronic.
I need an Advil.
You're gonna need it. And then an early reader book, keep it simple, but look how big it is and look how many images. This book has over 60 images. 198, and they're all spot art. This is called an early reader book. And they start reading it for 5-year-olds. The page count is way different. Let me just finish my thought and then I'll give you time. This is different. This is considered manga, right? Like a comic book. It is 190 pages. Like the thickness, size, this is all art. I bet you it's under 2,000 words. This is one of my son's favorite books. It's called Glitch. The writer's really famous. The writer's kid, I think, goes to Trinity, my oldest child's school. This is considered early reader. I'm going to show you one more, and then I'm going to take questions. Okay? I'll be right back. All right, guys, sorry about that wait. Who knows this book? What is this book? Is it a picture book or is it an early reader book or is it both? It's both.
I would say both.
Is it 32 pages?
Isn't it more?
I want you to think out loud.
Yeah.
How many words text?
Doesn't it have like little paragraphs and then like really like minimalistic drawings, like almost pencil drawings kind of?
But is it
lot
a
of
picture
landscape.
book or is it an early reader book? Because a picture book should be under 500 words.
Oh, so it's an early reader book.
It's an early reader book. So I know I just blew your mind because board books have how many words?
Under 200.
100 or 0 words? From 0 to 100. Picture books have how many? That was last week.
2 to 5, 200 to 500.
200, 500. The sweet spot is 500, but it's, yeah, but you get it. So an early reader book, we just went over how many? This is a famous book. It is a picture book and is an early reader book. And we start reading this in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right? I'm smiling for a reason. I wrote this book. Look how thin it is. I made it 32 pages. I kept it small. It has less than 2,000 words. I think it has 1,400 words. It's an early reader book. When I pitched it, guess what the agents thought it was?
Early reader book.
A picture book.
Hmm.
Why am I mixing you guys up like this? Why? Like I want you guys to understand why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for a reason.
I'll say for me personally, it made me think that what I think a child would start, the age group that I think isn't necessarily that group for children across the world, because some kids start at 5 reading big books versus, some kids in a rural community, they might not be exposed to something like that. So that's what I think that's what the shakeup is doing for me.
I'm glad you're thinking that. Anyone else? And I'm gonna ask you guys to write this down because I didn't put this on the text because now we're gonna do the other part of the class. Anyone else? Why am I mixing you up? Go ahead, Carissa.
Because sometimes when we think about readers, we think maybe like with the early reader, for example, I was surprised myself, even though I have 2 kids. We might think like, oh, the target audience is this group, but really it could be a different group. Like 1,200 words could be a child that is 5. So you also have to market to that group as well. You have to keep that in mind.
Okay. No, you guys are all right, by the way. So these are the 3 takeaway points I want you to take away with you. When you write your story, know your text. How many words did I just put on this paper after it's edited and everything? How many images I want on this text to go along with it? What should the category be based on the text, based on the images? And then when I pitch it, I am pitching to that. That's the secret sauce, you guys. You guys got to know your work more than whoever's receiving it. Because when someone tells you, oh, this is not really a picture book, it's an early reader book. Oh, why? I would like to know. It fits your standards of 500 words. It has over 8 to 10 images. And the words are under 1 syllable or 2, max 2. So I am figuring out based on this prescriptive, standard of publishing, it will be from 5 to 7, which is a K to a 2nd grader group. Okay? The same applies to early reader, except you're going to move up the grade. Based on my writing, I wrote a book under 2,000 words. You're supposed, and the books that are similar to my books are A, B, C, D. You should always, when you're pitching your book, when you say, I'll give you the example of the Three Little Pigs. I wrote the Three Little Pigs. I wrote the book, The Three Little Pigs, and it's a 500 text story with 10 to 12 images. It is for a kindergarten to second grade. And books that are similar to my Three Little Pig story is The Big Bad Wolf, is The Three Little Pigs Find a Friend, and this and that. What am I doing? What am I doing? I'm controlling my space. I know what I'm writing. And I'm not going to let myself be talked out of an opportunity through an agent or a publisher. Then they're going to take you seriously. I'm going to stop there and let you guys ask any questions before I move on, because this was really important. If you take anything away, take this. The reason I just bored you to death with numbers and pages is because you need to know what you're writing and how many pages it's going to take up in illustrations. Angie, are you there? Because I know Angie has read a lot of books, so she knows. We talk about this all the time. Can you share if what I share is, why is it so important? Because I know you talk to a lot of publishers.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what you said? If I could share what?
If you could share if what I just shared, the information of knowing your text well, your images, along with the amount of text number is really important for publishers, and also knowing in the space where your book stands in.
Oh yeah, definitely, because you want if you're self-publishing book, for example, you want your book to compete with traditionally published books, because that's how you're going to get attention. If your book is poorly made, poor illustrations, poor content, it's not following the standard, it's going to be difficult for you to sell it. It's going to be difficult for you to put it in libraries and bookstores because they look for these standards.
Yeah. So knowing the standards is like step number one, you're winning. And then when you're pitching, you can't pitch without knowing those standards.
Right.
Then you should just sit back down and think about what you're doing. And I don't say that to be like mean, but it's true. Because then they're like, I'm sorry, I don't think this book fits our standard. What is this competing against? They're going to tell you that because they told that to me.
And this is for people who actually care, because there are some folks who publish just to publish, and because they just want something put together that they could give out to their family and friends, and they're not really thinking of the outside world of the book world, of their audience, or who's actually looking at their book. I always say, whenever you put anything out of the world, you never know what kind of attention you're going to call. There have been publishers who reach out to authors who self-publish and want to buy the book off of them. Like, it has happened. So all that is possible. There are libraries that are looking for certain content, and if your book is poorly made, they're going to pass by you. So I say be intentional about what you're going to put out into the world, and make sure it's put together as professionally looking as possible. And I know Luz said that illustrations are expensive, and even getting an editor and getting someone to do the layout of a book. Plan with time. Don't rush, because that's when it is going to be overwhelming financially and every other way. Give yourself a year and a half to put it together. Don't be afraid to ask people for a payment plan. Yesterday I interviewed a writer on our Instagram Live, and she was telling that she asked her illustrator for a payment plan, and the illustrator said, yeah, offer them to make a deposit. And then when they complete certain images, you make another deposit or whatnot. It is possible, just for you to get the right illustrations for your work. Also, like, ask for samples, like try out different illustrators, like send them a page of your manuscript and say, hey, could you illustrate this page? And usually they charge like $50 per page, right? Something like that. so that you could choose the right illustrator. Different illustrators are gonna have different ideas on what your illustration should look like. Don't be afraid of telling people what you want them to look like.
Yeah.
As well, because this is your book project and you have your own idea. But I say stick to the most professional as possible, because our books, at least authors, POC authors, Latino authors, African American authors, are very much sought after.
Yes,
So why
Angelina.
not be intentional about it and make sure that it meets the standards, so that it reaches the schools and the libraries and bookstores.
Angelina asked if there's a resource. I'll share that because Angie has that in Dominican Writers website for editors, illustrators, as well as writers.
Yeah, we've collected. So if you go on Dominican Writers Instagram, there's a highlight with illustrators that I always add folks that I come across. And we also have a list, but it's just their Instagram pages for you to look through the list and decide which ones you like. I think last week we mentioned to make sure that they have illustrated books before.
Yes.
Or
yes.
that they have an understanding, because like I showed last week, there are some people who feel that their 6-year-olds should be illustrating their book.
Yes.
But their 3-year-olds should be illustrating their book. And they have made very poor and scary choices.
Yeah.
And
then the illustrations don't go with the
sell.
text. Yeah.
And the book doesn't sell. And the story could be very lovely, but once people look at the illustrations, it's like, oh my God, I can't buy this.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Angie. I'm gonna.
Elda Cole said that one of the authors needed mental health.
Yeah, it was Gilda. I loved it. Okay, I'm gonna
ask for recommendations. Like, feel free to ask Luz for recommendations. She has worked with many illustrators.
I work with over 10.
If you find an illustrator on Fiverr, read the reviews, ask people for reference, send it to Luz or someone who has published before, because it's easier for them to identify a scam. There are people out there, okay, that are scamming you. So, and what was the other thing we shared? Review what's trending when it comes to
picture books and early reader books. And read. That's a big one. So, guys, I'm glad I grabbed Angie to say that, because she's read a lot of books. She interviews a lot of authors, and I know I'm only one author, but she knows what's trending all the time. So any questions about what I shared about knowing your text, knowing your illustrations, and knowing when you're going to pitch, because it makes a difference when you're writing this book. Any questions? Okay, if not, I'm going to jump. I want you to see this. And because I think it's important for you guys to see what's out there in the book space, even if it's via YouTube, we're going to do it together. Let me share the screen. Hold on. I forgot to share the screen all of a sudden. Angie, I can't share the screen now. Oh, here it is. Oh my God, I blanked out. Here we go. It's 1 minute and 26 seconds. Thumbs up when you're done. Excuse me.
I hope everybody is watching on their own and listening to it.
It's not that long. Thumbs up when you're done. Okay. Thumbs up once you're done. Okay. So I know that was a very cheesy, easy or picture book, almost like board book, but you guys are gonna laugh. That's considered an early reader in certain schools. And it's important to know that because that book, what they do is they lengthen it and they just keep showing until the child starts reading on their own. I like to play on the pool. I like to this, I like to that. But this is literacy. We have to address it, you know, and learn that.
And it's scholastic.
And it's scholastic. Exactly. Yeah, shit on scholastic. So exercise 1, you guys have 2 minutes, write 6 sentences of things you love, similar to the book we saw. Starting now, and then we're gonna share it.
Can you repeat it again, Luz?
Write 6 sentences of things you love, similar to the book we just saw. Okay, we got 1 minute and 30 seconds. So 6 sentences of things you love. So if we were to do a word count of 6 sentences of things you love, it will be under 100 words. It could be, I love ice cream. I love to jump. I love to swing. I love hugs. I love chocolate. I love beers. It could be anything because this is your picture book. We're not giving this to a kid, but I want you guys to start making it very simple so you guys can follow. Okay, we're under, it's gonna be 45 seconds right now we're up to. So just think like that, your favorite things you love. I love to travel. I love to bike. I love to run. I love to eat. I love to sleep. Okay, we got 30 seconds. I know this is a little tough to think like this. It's very kind of like a rhythm that's very simple, but you're trying to get into that rhythm. Let's see what the chat says. I love to coach. Yes, thank you, Kelly. I love to coach. I love to write. I love to travel. I love to listen to music. I love to dance. Angelina, I love to bake. I love pizza. I love mangoes. I love my family. I love the beach. And we're done with time. I love my mom. Oh, I like this one. I love my mom. That's so cute. Okay, time's up. How did that feel? Did any of you guys think this will be a great exercise for like the first class for a board book? I'm pretty sure you thought it makes sense because a lot of the board book talk, it was under 100 words. I wanted to do this exercise and I want to explain myself. All these books could be board book, but that's what an early reader book is. We're taking a small thought and we're expanding it. So if you keep seeing me go back and forth, it's because I'm trying to get you to think. I'm going to write a longer body of text for someone that is learning to read at a longer stamina. This was a gift from yesterday, I went to the Schomburg event, and this was from an author. Oh, Carissa, you could go, but look. She says she started with no words. And this
Is
is
that
an
a
early
middle
reader.
grade graphic novel?
Yep, but she started as like that, with almost no words, illustrating, and just sentences. She broke them up. Start thinking small, and you build up to do an early reader book. Go ahead, Carissa. Do you have your hand?
What I was thinking about, because I do have a lot of these. I taught my kids how to, I taught my bigger son how to read, and I'm preparing myself for the summer to teach the little one. But a lot of the things have to do, you remember what you were saying with the sight words?
Yeah.
Actually do it with like a purpose in mind. So like, for example, these ones have the sound, so sad cats. And then all the things, so the story is very small, but everything inside has to do with the letter A. So every word, if you see, has the letter A. So like if somebody wants to do these books that you're talking about, they should keep that in mind. That when they do it with like sounds and stuff like that. And the first ones are sight words. So you mentioned it in the first.
I mentioned it in the first and second, because the truth of the matter is all children's books should incorporate sight words, and I show you the graph of the 100 first sight words.
And in this one specifically, if you when you open them, you see how little they are. The majority of them is all sight words. There's not really a lot, and the pictures, like you were saying, they do match everything that is in there.
So I'm not lying. I'm not lying.
You have to match the content.
No, I'm just joking.
It's even more specific than the
other. Caballota, you've been verified.
I've been verified. She gave me the
verified. Check. You're official.
I'm official now. No, I'm playing, but I want you guys to test what I'm saying, because I'm telling you, because I learned by error. I'm glad. And these exercises are meant to be like, pero espérate, it feels like a board book. Espérate, it feels like a picture book. All the children's book, the sauce is the same. Keep it simple, keep it light. And if it's an early reader book, the only difference is it's like you're adding more, but it should flow into more text. So all this, I love to coach, I love to dance, I love to read. I'm sorry, I just kept the three Kelvin and Angelina and Mariela's thing. I just read the first, but that's what I want you to do. You're showing everything you love and just making it longer. Let's see.
I did have a question, Luz. So
yeah, go ahead.
The one that you show, like the one like Cutico, you know, and sometimes in the back it has like what step is it? Do they do that for you, or when you pitch it, do you have to tell them?
This is why I was saying, why do I want you to know how many texts your book has and how many illustrations? Because remember, when you're pitching, you're doing that. Like Cutico. Hi, my name is Luz Maria Mack. I want to pitch to you Loving Cutico. It has 10 images, 12 images, 5 spot arts. It's under 2,000 words. It is perfect for a 8-year-old to 12-year-old. So if you look at the graph, they'll say like, and then they'll read it and be like, I don't know. But I have to know what I'm writing, right? I have to know the level. I have to know. And if they say, I don't know, you'll say, I've kept all my text under 1 syllable or 2 syllables. There's no multi-syllable words. You see what I'm saying? So it's important for you guys to know the standards, because part of pitching is like, and then you can say, because this is what I said when I was pitching Cutico, there is no book about cockfights for children in this space. Because then it is true. How many children's books that you read about cockfights? So that, then I had to talk with Free Spirit. I had to talk with this, but we are still catering to a white audience. So that was something that they were questionable about.
Always.
Always.
Well, it's because it's also politics. I don't want to get into it, but it's also like, we also need to buy more books and be in those spaces where it's like, yo, we have a real like purchasing power when it comes to it, right? Because that's the other half too. But anyways.
No, I love what you're saying, Mariela, because yesterday at the Schomburg, Tony, I'll let you go next. I was surprised how many people stopped by my table because it said Dominican children's book author. Got a lot of Black love, and I have to say Black love because it's like, yes, you're part of the struggle too. Like I heard that, and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting the love. Like it felt good, and people actually said, tell me what my child needs to know about your story. I had parents ask me that. Some were white, some were Black, but I think that's how we need to be there. We need to show up. And sometimes it's hard for me to show up because I have 3 kids, but that's the power of like showing. And also I had an editor told me, I want your book because I believe in this, but none of the publishers are going to pick it up. That's another story. You know the editor. Tony,
right.
Go ahead.
They're not going to pick it up.
I just have a question about like content. So I know you talked about like how many words a book has and things like that. But if you have like a content, for example, like a single dad or kids that come from like a unique family situation, do the publishers determine what category or what age group it's appropriate for, or is just strictly word count and things like that?
I'm glad you talked about content because I didn't get into it specifically because the content is very mixed emotion. And I think Angie could correct me or anyone else who has pitched a book. Like for example, the Cutico book doesn't talk about violence, right? But I'm talking about cockfights. So you're assuming violence already, right? Like there's animal cruelty, right? Because it's already talking about, I want to train your pet how to fight. They're already taking that content as like a rated R, let's say like that, not for a general audience. So the way content is kind of like graded in these spaces is, if you're going to talk about single parenthood, how are you going to entertain it? Are you going to talk a lot about people starving or struggling? Are you going to dance around it with the images? So they want you to keep it very light. You know what I mean? They don't like things that are very graphic. I remember I was in a panel. This was a couple years ago before I met Dominican writers. And one of the writers wrote, and she was a novelist. I never forgot. She said, you have to be careful about how you dance your words, because there's a lot of things in Black and brown spaces that we cannot talk about, which is nudity, violence, and we can't talk about cruelty because it's not going to be received well. And although it's normalized in our communities, they think that it shouldn't be available in books. And I was really surprised she said that, because I'm like, well, kids are smart enough that they pick up on all this, then why are we not talking about it as adults? So that's to say, the content that we are giving out, we should be very aware how we're delivering that. So if you're going to talk about single parenthood, to answer your question, we should be talking about it with a lot of care and very careful. And I'm sure you are, because based on your writing.
One of the things, so I know I didn't get to speak about the detective and the 3 little pigs, but that I thought about it as me, kid looking for, and that was the search and trying to figure out who he was and things like that. So that, that like the content was like a kid in search of his father who he never met. And I'm sure there's a lot of us that have been in that place. And I would love to share those kinds of stories.
No, I agree. I think we need it because I think kids need an outlet. I'm gonna share one thing, and this is not about me. It's about another writer who wanted me to judge her work. She wanted to write a children's book about knowing that her dad would never come. The book was extremely sad. It was extremely sad. Like it made me cry. And it's content, right? And I was telling her, is the takeaway message is knowing that your dad is never going to come? Or is the takeaway message like, I should love the people that are here? So whatever your content is, you have to always keep in mind what is the message you want to deliver.
And that you're not traumatizing the kids.
And that you're not, exactly, that's exactly what I'm getting at, because it's not going to get picked up.
Yeah.
If it's going to be something like, unquote, traumatic. Remember, it's a white audience they're catering to. Cutico. Angie read the book. The Cutico book does not say that the rooster died. No roosters were harmed. And they're like, it was traumatic that you said there was going to be a cockfight. Just because of that. And it ends in a happy ending. Like, the rooster gets to be a pet, and you know what I'm saying? What I'm getting at, you have to be very careful how you're going to address anything that is deemed traumatic. On that note,
that reminds me of Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
The first scene of that movie, my kid, like, I had watched that movie tons of times, but the first time I showed it to my kid, he watched the first scene and he was like, I can't watch this.
Yeah.
And it's because I never noticed that the shark eats the mom in the first scene of Finding Nemo, and my son noticed. And they do it in such a way that it is different. Like, I didn't notice till my son pointed it out, and I had to rewind and look at it again. And he's never again picked up that movie. Like, after that first scene, he was like, wow, like, the mom is gone. He ate the mom. And I was like, what are you talking about?
It's hilarious, but it's the truth.
It's a Disney movie, you know, and you're supposed to get all this positive stuff, but in the first scene, the mom is off.
But they do it in that way because they don't want to traumatize the kid. Thank you for reminding us about that movie. I know I'm struggling for time again because it's 4:25. I'm going to breeze through this. Please check this YouTube out. We're going to see it together. Let me press play. Thumbs up as soon as you're done. Hold on. This is the last one. It's called Donuts. Ay, coño. Why is it doing that? 7 minutes. And we're going to skip X. Hold on, guys. Let me stop the share. What do you guys think? This was like a silly book, right? It's considered an early reader. It's a lot of pages. It's not just 32 pages. It goes over, by the way. It's 7 minutes long. As you can see, it made no sense. It was just going donuts, donuts, donuts. They were playing with the word donut. That was it, you know? So, and I'm gonna share the screen one more time. I'm gonna give you guys exercise 2 and 2B, and these are the last exercises, and then we're gonna power through some slides. And so donuts, the whole story is funny, cute, entertaining story. If we were to add to the story, think of 2 silly sentences to add to it and why. So giving you a minute now. And the 2, please envision the illustrations that will go with your sentence. So that's 2B. So I'm giving you 2 minutes. 1 is add a sentence, like 2 silly sentences to add to the story and why. And 2, what would the illustrations look like? 2 minutes starting now. Okay, we just went through our first 30 seconds, so we have 1 minute and 30 seconds. It's 2 sentences, okay? You know, donut, the whole story is, it was kind of weird, right? You see all the sprinkle donuts, the jelly donut, the plain donut, the one getting bathed in like glaze. That was kind of cute. We got 41 seconds now, down to 40. Okay, let me look at the chat. Donuts missing a little in the middle. Oh my goodness, there's a hole in us. That's so cute, Angelina. Bam, zinger. What would the illustration be?
No,
It will be the missing donut hole.
Yeah, it would be them like looking down and realizing that they're missing the hole, and then realizing, well, missing a piece of themselves, and then realizing there's a hole.
That's
Mhm.
awesome. You got it. Perfect. Okay, guys, time is up in 2, 1, done. Okay. Anyone wants to share? We got Angelina. She was the first brave soul to share. Go ahead, get off the mic if you want to share. Oh, we're still working. That's it. It's 2 minutes. You.
This one was hard.
It's fine. I could
I
tell.
mean, I just wrote donuts are happy to be eaten. That was the reason they partied through the night. I mean, it wasn't even a sentence. I couldn't even figure out how to make it like minimal. I don't know.
I think you do. That's how you have to do. You just keep powering through it until you all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got this idea. Anyone else? Tatiana, yes. I love the rhyming and the illustrations. They were very engaging. I do too. I like the voice too.
It just made me hungry.
I know. I know. I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
All right. I'm going to share my screen because I could tell I'm wearing you guys out, you know? For Tubi, I hope every time you hear illustrations, you think this. Wait, hold on. I'm missing a chat. Amanda, donuts are known for being sweet, but does anyone stop to think what donuts eat? Oh my God.
That's cute.
That is good. Amanda, you better get off the mic, girl. Amanda, come on. Don't hide. Get off the mic.
No,
What's the
yeah.
illustration?
It was fun to be silly with it. So sweet. I was thinking, like a donut blushing, if you can do that with colors.
Yes.
Just like what they eat, just like a donut with a question mark on top of it. What do they eat? We don't really know.
So I hope that these exercises make you think like all these books are short, but if I add to it, I'll make a longer book and it's an early reader book. Does that make sense? We started with the short board book, picture book, early reader book. How am I going to lengthen this body of work? You could think about it if you start writing a poem. Let's say if you want to start writing a poem about something that's really easy for you to think about. It could be food, it could be a place, it could be a thing, it could be someone you love. And then just start adding to it and taking it away. Think about it like that. Because I know I gave you a lot of information. Like I actually hated me teaching this class today because I'm like, wow, that's a lot of information. I'm making you go back and think about what just happened and thinking about now. But I want you to think like this because it's going to save you one day when you're pitching. Okay. Okay, so we're going to power through. When you think, anytime I say illustrations, you should think this, you should start jotting down ideas of how things should look like. Okay, research and understand the author's writing purpose. Go on Amazon, search for early reader books. It could be early reader books for girls, early book readers for boys, or whatever, another search that narrows it down. It could be an early reader books about puppies. That's another one. It could be an early reader book about adventures, okay? Start doing those narrow search. Try to see what pops up, okay? Write down the book's name, write down what the book is about based on your research of what you can gather from that page. Discover information about the author. And now take an educated guess of why the author wrote the book. The reason I'm making you do that research is because when people write their book, I think Carissa has a book coming out now in June that we should be celebrating. Carissa, why did you write that book? Can you get off the mic and share?
You just put me on the spot, Luz.
I know, I'm so good at it.
During the pandemic, I was reading with my kids, and then I was thinking about what was I reading when I was their age, and then I was thinking about the children from my town. I am from Valverde Mountain, Dominican Republic, and then I was thinking, do they see themselves in books? And I started thinking about how many writers do I know from there. So I made a story, a little bedtime story, that was inspired by them. And the illustrators look like my town. So I did it with Taina, she did research. So the illustrations have like cows and rice, and like the houses are made out of madera. So
Boy.
they can see themselves in there too.
Yeah, so this is Carissa, one of our fellow writers in this class. She wrote a book, and this was her message. She wanted it to be about her home. Hold on, let me check the chat. A lot of writers. What's the title of the book, Carissa?
It's called A Dormir, A Soñar, because it's a bedtime story, and it will come out June 25th. They just confirmed today that it will be released.
So this weekend, vamos a ver. So my whole point is that every writer is writing a book for a reason. There's a message they want. I put Carissa on the spot. Thank you for not hurting me. We understand what it is. We should be researching this, because then it makes us think, why do I want to write a picture book or an early reader book or a board book? What is the reason I want to write it? Does that make sense? Right? And we should be knowing the writer's why. Because when they're writing their book, does that come out? Like, this is my message. Like, if my message is, I want to affirm kids, are my books affirming? Am I making you guys have a big question mark? Exactly. Does that go? My text, does it go with the illustrations? Okay. Exercise 3, please write down what you hope people will search for your book. Would it be an early book readers for Latinx girls, or what would be the search term? Write down the book's name. If you don't have a book's name, write down a blurb of what you want the book to be about, okay? Let's put together information about you as an author and why you will write this book. Do you know why I'm making you guys do this?
We need to know about ourselves really well. So when we get to a point that we are pitching, we have no questions about who we really are. We just know, and then we could fight for whatever we're pushing. Does that make sense?
It does. That's exactly one of the reasons why. The other one is, we are all here in this class because we want to write a book, or some of us are writing it. What is that book about? What does it say about me as a writer? You know, what is the message I'm getting out there? Well, who am I as a writer? You know what I mean? Who am I as a writer, illustrator, author? You know, start thinking like that. You cannot be who you're not thinking of. So you have to be thinking of yourself as that. Since it's 4:44 now, do you want to do this exercise and I'll give you 2 minutes, or do you guys want me to power through? You want the 2 minutes? Do you want the 2 minutes or power through? I can see some of you are tired. That's why I'm asking.
What does it say?
Please write down what you hope people will search for in your book. Would it be an early book readers for Latinx girls, or what will be the search term? So when people search for your book on Amazon, what would they be searching for? Oh, if you know the why, you can live anyhow. Exactly. Write down the book's name. Write down the blurb of what you want the book to be about if you don't know the book's name. And let's put together information about you as an author and why you will write this book. I'll give you the 2 minutes because I can see you guys are thinking, but I don't know if you're tired or you're thinking. And you don't have to share this, but I want you to really start thinking, this should be in your internal dialogue. This should be the reason why you're like, I took this class because I want to write this book. Like, for example, I'm writing a book in honor of my father's, my husband's father who passed away. It was the first time my children went to a funeral. It was really hard for them to talk about death. So what did we do? We honor him, thinking about the memories that we had with him and we shared with him. So I want to write a book because I want to honor grandpa and his memories with his grandkids. So I wanted to do a book that kind of make the kids know that he is, although he's not here with us, he's still physically part of our lives. And it's okay to grieve. How can we grieve in a healthy way? And talking about that as a child. So that's a piece I'm working on. But I'm also working on other things. So I'm kind of like an anomaly, but I'm giving you guys an example so you can think about. As an author, I know the why I'm writing this book. So what is the message I want to get to my readers? I want my readers, when they pick up this book, they'll be like, I know someone that passed away and have it. I know it hurts when they're gone. Maybe I could think about their memories and still feel them with me. It's okay that I cry about it, and then it's okay if I miss them. Does that ring a bell? I'm using my project as an example, but that's how I want you to start. What is your inner dialogue with yourself as the professional that you are as an author? Okay. Okay, time is up. You don't have to share, but if you would like to share, you're welcome to, and just unmute while I set up for the next slide.
I'll share.
Go ahead.
So I have an idea for a children's book that's around a young girl spending a day on her grandfather's farm and working with him and really learning about how he takes care of all the chickens and cows and pigs, and the agriculture as well, specifically sugar cane and planting. And I want them to tie in the importance of just spending time and doing things like that. Because a lot of kids today, they don't really have opportunities to just go spend time on a farm. So I would include at some point, just tie it all in together. But that's what I want the story to be about.
Perfect. And what does that say about you as an author? The story. What do you want it to say about you as an author, of who you are and why you believe in this story?
Gosh, I don't know. That's kind of a deep question.
No, it's okay. You don't have to answer. Just think about it. I want to be the friend to kind of ask these questions because it should be your why. It should be why I wrote this story. So when you pitch, people could see your passion coming through. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why does...
I thought about that earlier when I was thinking specifically in the DR and the work that a lot of men do in agriculture and how it's not on a larger scale, it's not really acknowledged. So that's sort of my motivation to bring attention to those stories with my granddad in mind for it.
No, we need that. And there's not a lot of books about the natural resources and the work that is put to bring it forth, because it doesn't only feed the country, it feeds other countries as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Calvin says, motivation for young boys. It's okay if dad is not around, you can still be great. Moms are great too. Okay. So I'm gonna move on just for the interest of time because it's 4:49 and we're heading 2 hours almost. Beta readers. What did I say about beta readers in the last class?
They shouldn't be friends and family.
There you go. Beta reader is a test reader of unreleased work of literature that gives feedback that helps authors. I'm going to keep talking about them nicely. We're going to focus more in the editing version, but I want to remind you, whatever you're writing, you should, this group could be your beta readers. Just how we keep sharing the little exercises, think about it. Carissa was my beta reader and editor, and like a lot of my pieces. Beta readers do not replace editors. I'll repeat that. Beta readers do not replace editors. While beta readers give honest feedback on the manuscript and provide information to fine-tune your story, they should not replace an editor. Editors are powerful at providing corrections, format, and need for story development. I'll give you an example. I have a book that comes out in the fall with Soaring Kite Books, which is an imprint of learners. My piece that I submitted, I thought was done. She had a group of beta readers. After the group of beta readers and went to an editor, it was not done. We went through 3 more months of story development. And how long and how much text you think we added to the story? You will laugh, under 50 words. That matters. And made the story so much more beautiful in my eyes. Even the illustrator called me saying, yo, it was, she's Dominican. So she's like, esa editor una matatana. That was the feedback I got. I loved it. That's what I want to hear. If we're both feeling excited that they did a great job, guess what? It'll make the book like a lot better. Okay. Source files, artwork. The source file is the artwork created by the illustrator you hired. Usually, the source file is a layered file with work from Adobe Photoshop or InDesign. Why am I sharing this about everything with early readers? Because these are other things that I want you to keep in mind when you're working with an illustrator. Make sure when you hire an illustrator, you get your source files. I worked with an illustrator that I did not get my source files for 3 of the books. And it was a big lesson. I will go over that more in next class because we're not done with early reader. This class is early reader 1. Next class is early reader 2, because we're going to go through more of the nuances that we need. Why do you need source files? You will need a high resolution image to promote your book for flyers, book trailers, as well as promotional items. And the one thing I forgot to write here, you will need your source files. What happens if there's an error and you need to reproduce your book? What happens if you want to reproduce your book in another language? You would need your source files. So it's very vital for you to have that. So when you're working with illustrators, these are all notes you should have. Most illustrators work for hire as freelancers, okay? Let's stay in touch. This is the last part, but what I'm gonna do as a recap is this. For an early book reader, think about it as a small story that is building up for larger text, bigger text, okay? It should be anywhere from 800 words to under 2,000 words, right? Think about it, keeping it simple, keeping it sweet, and that you have images. Remember, kids get tired. You want your illustrations to go with the text, and you want it for kids that are learning to build up their stamina for reading. I'm going to keep saying stamina for reading because why? Because kids are still practicing their sight words, connecting words together to make long sentences, and they need to understand the complexity, okay? Illustrators, when you're working with illustrators, they should be able to replicate the images that will go with your text. When you're working with illustrators, there's another level of complexity that you need to understand, and we'll go over it more in next class. I want to leave the remaining 3 minutes because we're hitting 2 hours for questions, okay? And then I'm gonna bid you guys a great Sabbath.
Caballota, I just want to thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome, Gelda. Thank you for letting me be your caballota this Sunday. And then I'll go back to Luz. It's the Mermaid Day, and it's Juneteenth, and it's Father's Day. We should celebrate it all. Any questions? You guys felt good about this task? This task was a lot more, you know, like a lot more facts that you need. But now I'm hoping this is making you think like, board books, picture books. You're putting things in places and how your story will fit in one of these ideals.
Can I ask you one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we have what, 3 more classes, is it?
Yep, this
Okay.
is the midway point.
Will you be offering classes where we can expand on books that are a little bit lengthier?
You know, it's interesting because when Angie was approaching me about teaching a workshop, I took a long time to put these classes together, believe it or not. I took 2 months and a half or 3, and even sharing it with Angie, being like, does this make sense? Because I really thought about all the books I put together, because I don't want to teach anything I haven't done myself.
Okay.
So I haven't done a chapter book like novels. I've kind of did, I really didn't because it was my daughter. I did kind of like a graphic little novel for her, but it was her drawings and things like that. So for longer books, I haven't experienced that myself. I've been working on something. Any other questions? Angie, you want to jump in? Oh, Tatiana, sorry.
Say this is a children's writing workshop.
Yeah.
So
I was
like,
asking if in the future, not now, like in
yeah,
the
because
future.
then there's like middle grade, that is a whole other
another
world. And then you have young adult, which is a whole other world.
Remember,
So,
Angie, I'm not in your field, so I just asked the question because I just don't know.
Yeah.
So Luz teaches what she's experienced in. She's experienced in children's book. That's what she's published. And I don't think Luz will feel right teaching something that she hasn't done before. Right?
I wouldn't. I know some of the stuff, but I wouldn't be the right thing.
Definitely recommend workshops that you could take. Like, for example, the Highlights Foundation. If you look them up, they offer tons of writing workshops. And they also have a writing retreat if you ever need solitude for you to finish a book project, a children's book project. And there's also Las Musas.
Yes.
If you do not follow Las Musas, you're doing yourself a disservice. They help women, specifically women writers, publish children's books, and they have fellowships that you could apply for where they assign you to a mentor who helps you through publishing your book and whatnot, but you have to apply for that. They have a wonderful podcast as well that you should watch, and they have a YouTube channel that you should watch. And they're all middle grade and under.
Yeah.
Young adult books are almost working into adult novels, so that's a whole other genre. And I haven't seen any workshops in writing for young adults, actually. Unless you look into Vona, which is, if you don't know what Vona is, they offer writing workshops and they do these summer sessions. Mariela left? Mariela, talk about Vona. Come on, you're the program.
Yeah. Really quick, I do programming at Vona, and so it's vonavoices.org, and it stands for Voices of Our Nation's Arts. It was actually founded by Juno Diaz, Elmas Abinader, and DM Jones. So like Angie said, one of the biggest programming that we run is the week-long session. So we cover all genres from like fiction to nonfiction to journalism, political writing, just like playwriting, comedy writing. It's a bunch of different genres. And then we also have like one-offs. So we do have like craft intensives during the year as well. And then it's funny, one of the workshops that people keep asking us for is like children, YA, and like speculative fiction. So we've had people like Daniel Jose Older and Tana Narif do, and different folks do like the YA, because I didn't realize how big of a market YA books really are, right? And then it's like Angie said, like, how do you get that training, but also getting it by someone who's also BIPOC, right? And the attention that it takes to get a main like Latinx or a main Black character in like fantasy, and like who do you market that to? So yeah, check us out, vonavoices.org. And I'll put it in the chat for those of you who want to check it out.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you
And
so much.
one advice that I cannot stop giving is read the genre you want to write. Become obsessed with reading it. Me, when it comes to YA, I'm like, it's books for teenagers. They're teenage characters dealing with teenage issues. That's YA, right? So I don't know, in my head, it doesn't seem that difficult, but writing in itself can be difficult, and putting your vision into words can be difficult. But the only way to do that is by writing. Like, take your mind out of, does this make sense? Is this in the right format? Do I have all the words? Just write. Because once you start working with an editor of that genre, they're going to help you put that so that it makes sense. Okay, a lot of people, when they write, they get stuck on, oh, this isn't 500 words, let me cut it down. And then you're stuck on cutting something down rather than writing the story, right? So that's my advice, write, and then you cut it down to meet the requirements of the genre that you're looking for, that you're looking to write. And always work with an editor experience in your genre. If you need an editor for poetry, get a poetry editor. If you need an editor for children's book, get a children's book editor who knows about children's books, right? An adult editor will not touch children's books.
Yeah.
And a children's book editor will not touch a novel because it's just not the genre that they're experiencing. So these are questions that you need to ask people when they're editing. Ask them, how many children's books have you edited? Can you show me samples, or what books are those that I could look for or whatnot? That's super important.
I mean, the one thing I'm going to tell you that I learned through my experience of writing and even serving as a reader, a beta reader for my for the publishing house I represent, and also other publishing houses that are small, is that if you're a beta reader, you know what's good. You start like not realizing what's good after you read like the like, I want to say like the 50th manuscript. You understand who's doing a good job.
She said 50, so remember.
50. If you're not reading above 50, the first 10 you're like, ah, esto está bueno. You're just like my mom. Esto está bueno. Don't get esto está bueno. Don't get that person. Because I'm gonna say a joke. Angie, don't put this shit in private. I was given a manuscript about a board book on bachata written by someone that's not Dominican. Have you ever heard of bachata ballroom?
Oh my God, it's horrible. This bachata, yes, it's disgusting.
Okay. Someone wanted to write a book about bachata boardroom. I was a beta reader. They asked for my feedback 3 times. I asked for a personal call. I'm like, I will not read this. I read the first 2 pages and I hated it. And these are my thoughts.
That's like the meme. Immediately no. It
was like, I shut it down real quick. And I'm like, okay, imagine me writing a board book on what's that famous African dance in Nigeria. How is that's misappropriation. That's my whole thing. So know your audience, know what you're writing, know your message, and read books.
Yeah.
All my classrooms, I'm gonna make you read books. And it's coming from a white audience because I want you to think differently and put it in your voice.
So what's wrong with ballroom bachata?
It ain't fucking bachata.
Ballroom bachata is colonized bachata.
It's colonized bachata coming from 2 different cultures.
And was the writer Latino?
Of course not.
They were, but they were like, you know what I mean.
Were they like a white passing Latino? Were they like
exactly? I have an issue with them.
But a white, say that again. What was that?
They were white Latino.
White Latino, yeah.
Okay.
That
Like
don't
a
know,
Bad Bunny Latino or like a Cameron Diaz Latino?
like a Yo no sabo Latino.
Oh.
That Latino. Yo
I
no
see.
sabo, and how you spell bolita. That Latino. I mean, you're still Latino. Like, let me take that back.
Yeah.
But then why are you writing about bachata?
You know, can I say something really quickly? And I understand you clearly. I had written a bachata, and
But you sabo.
yeah, but you know what's so funny? I was writing it for Alex Bueno, right? A duet, which is on YouTube, by the way. If anybody wants to look it up, it's a duet. I want to sing it myself.
Mierda.
But the funny thing is that I wrote it for these people in Marcy Place, the people that were managing Marcy Place back in
I
the day,
remember
whenever.
them.
I
Yeah,
remember that. I went to
Mariela's from Marcy Place.
I went to
Mariela,
a
I'm
couple
from
of
Marcy
parties
houses.
there.
Marcy
Woo!
Place is in the Bronx.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh
So,
no, I'm thinking about the one in Brooklyn.
In
no, it's the
Brooklyn.
one it's the one in the Bronx. So
Yeah.
my
I
coworker,
was on Ellis Place, by the way, when those parties used to happen. Ellis Place around the corner.
so I was writing this, the girl was like, oh, please, my coworker, please write this duet for Alex Bueno so we can bring him back up, whatever, because he was into a whole lot of mess. So when I wrote the bachata, I wrote it because she asked me, not because that's not my strongest genre. My strongest genre is salsa. But to make the long story short, I went to meet him, oye, donde Elsa, the one that has the restaurant in Jersey, but she has one in Jersey, right?
Yeah.
So I meet Alex Bueno, we're talking about it. They were gonna have the Spanish voice, she won some voice contest over there. So they're gonna have her sing it, right? Which was fine with me because I'm just the writer, right? I'm a singer-songwriter, but anyway, so the look, the this, the that. To make the long story short, when he heard me reference the song, he says, oh, hell no. You have to sing that song because you have the flavor. So he was like, no, this Spaniard woman is not going to sing that song. It has to be you. And that's how I understand what you're saying. You have to be part of that
movement,
that part of it in order to sound right. And in his ears, she wouldn't have sounded right. Who knew?
With a Spanish accent?
Quién sabe, but she could have been trained.
The point is of saying, read more books and speak with your authentic voice, because there are publishers that if you're not coming from an authentic voice, they're going to shut it down. And you should be that writer too, because you should not write. Just like if you're asking me, should I teach a novel class? I've never written a book, so I might not be a good fit. I want to. Angie knows my biggest goal is to write a musical, but I need to be doing it. And I was paying for the classes to try to learn these things and more of the script writing. But it's not to insult the person, to be like, bachata, but honestly, it's not authentic. And she was trying to highlight Dominican Republic, a place she's not from.
And and Dominican Republic does not do bachata ballroom.
They do not do it. If I would have been a very bad author for being like, oh yeah, eso está bueno. Be afraid of those people. You should have someone that's pushing you. Angie pushes me all the time. I'm like, Lucy, ¿qué tú estás diciendo? And I need that. I'm like, you're right, Angie. What am I saying? You need that. Anyways, with all that said, have a blessed Juneteenth. I hope this class made you think, makes you motivated, fills your spirit. For those that need to catch up on the YouTube, please watch it at your pace. I know the classes are tending to be 2 hours, but it does give a lot of information, so it can help you with your manuscript. All right. Thank you. Have a blessed one. Bye, guys.
Bye. Take care.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.